Welcome back to the Dr. Jones Optimization Academy podcast, where we uncover the latest in functional medicine and longevity science. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Jones, and today I am thrilled to welcome Hayden Collier, PharmD, the Director of Clinical Services at NuBioAge. With a passion for weightlifting, sports science, and innovative healthcare, Dr. Collier blends the disciplines of fitness and prevention to redefine approaches to health and longevity. In today's episode, we are going to dive into the fascinating world of methylene blue. Methylene blue is a compound with incredible potential for mitochondrial support, cognitive enhancement, and overall cellular health. Dr. Collier is going to guide us through the science, the clinical applications, and the practical tips for incorporating methylene blue into modern medicine. Hayden, Dr. Collier, my friend, welcome to the podcast. All right, man. Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Doing well, man. Yourself? Thank you for having me today.
Oh, anytime, man. I feel like it's been a long time coming. We keep hanging out at the conferences and stuff like that. And it's just like, and I appreciate you never being like, dog, when are you going to have me on the show? You got everybody else on the show.
Yeah.
What's up? What's up? You know, we're not cool.
I know we're boys. It's all good. We had to find a good topic to talk about, man. So that's all.
Yeah.
That's happening sometimes.
Yeah. And we got a great one today, man. But before we kind of hop into it, man, I know we kind of talked about it at the conferences and all that cool stuff, man. But tell me a little bit like your background, man. Obviously, you went to the U. We're talking about that.
I wish I went to the U. I grew up in South Florida my whole life, right? So I went to a small private school for undergrad and for pharmacy school. So like we didn't have a football team. So like growing up, I was a Hurricanes fan. So I was able to keep that going. So, but
cool.
Grew up playing sports my whole life. Started working out at like 14, right? So I've always been in that health conscious mindset, and went to pharmacy school. I worked retail pharmacy. I worked at Walgreens for like 11 years. Then I worked at Winn-Dixie for a couple of years. And one of my mutual patients was Frank, came to me and said, hey, he's looking for, another pharmacist. I recommended you. And I was like, yeah, at the time I was like, I'll just go see what this guy's talking about. And kind of saw, what they were doing. I'm like, oh man, this is where I really want to be, right? Like, I was always probably like the gym bro science, right? I was always into that because I was a pharmacist and kind of wanted to merge that. And not that, peptides, there is a lot of gym bro stuff out there, but to get it at like a cellular level, which is just like next level stuff, being a pharmacist. And like, I really, really, really enjoyed it. So kind of fell in love with it, dove head first, and then I kind of never looked back. So I've had the opportunity to train with Leonard, kind of been my mentor. And then, now I'm just reading clinical trials all day, talking to providers and patients. And it's definitely been a huge shift in where I was, right? Traditional healthcare. And now as we call it, longevity, but preventative medicine essentially. And it's been really, really cool.
Okay, cool, man. It's really cool. So at NuBioAge, and on your bio, and we've talked, so you're the Director of Clinical Services.
Correct.
So for those who would not know what that is, what is that? Like, what is your role? Like, what does that entail?
My role essentially is with NuBioAge, you do a lot of education. So we do one-on-one calls. So as pharmacists, the providers will schedule calls with me to go over dosing, side effects, contraindications, protocol development, patient cases. You need a couple ideas of treatments that the patients are struggling with, any kind of clinical help. I'm there to help providers with. And then on the even on the pharmacy side, like when it comes to formulation development and strategies on that side as well. So kind of, broad a little bit, because we even have a metabolic health clinic where we do like DEXA scans. We have VO2 max testing as well. So I'll also counsel the patients on that side of after they get their results back, and then some treatments and stuff that they can do afterwards.
Okay, that's good. And just to make sure, because again, this isn't like a hotline, right? It's not just gonna be like any old person just call you up like, hey, what's up with that CJC 1295 dosing, right? I'm assuming that they should be a practitioner that you guys work with currently, right? So it's not
with the practitioner. But if a patient's getting something from the pharmacy, right? Like, and they, of course, their doctor hopefully wrote a dose on the prescription, right?
But
if they're like, what's the dosing range? I can give if they have that prescription. But most of the time, yes, a provider who's in our network having questions and things like that, I definitely help, with all that kind of any clinical questions.
Good. And that I want to make sure that's clear. That's in the network. So we don't want just random providers calling.
Well, you
Like
join the
new
network,
pharmacy.
and then you can ask any questions you want, right?
No,
Just
because if you're not in the network, it's like new pharmacy. Who this?
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know who this is. That's good to know, man. So I really, today we're gonna dive into methylene blue, man, and kind of like a little bit of backstory is like I had been hearing about methylene blue for a couple years now, and I'm late to the party. I gotta admit, man, I'm late to the party.
I was bugging you about it, Greg. Would you try it?
A long time. And I'm
you.
like, dude, like it is a die, dude. You can't fool me, bro. I took chemistry classes. I know, like, we're not putting that in my body, man. I just can't do it. And the more I start hearing about it, and I do appreciate you guys being persistent. And again, the more I hang around you guys, everybody's on methylene blue. And I started talking to our mutual colleagues. Everyone's on methylene blue, and I'm like, all right, man, fine. I'll get some methylene blue, right? And I finally did it. I was like, damn, I'm so late. This is great. This is great, So yeah, and so now I get to really spend some time talking to you about it, man, and really just like going through how it works and how it benefits people. So I'm pretty excited about it. So, and going back to like my little spiel on like, okay, it's a dye and it's blue and all that, man. And it has such a fascinating history, man. Can talk to me about like the origin story of methylene blue and how it got really, kind of integrated in medicine.
Yeah, so it's like you said, it was a textile dye first. So, not wrong there, but it definitely, there was a microbiologist who was using it to stain bacteria and saw that it actually stained like live neuron blue as well. So, when they were staining different kinds of bacteria and stuff, they saw that it actually had stained some of the plasmoids for malaria. And they saw that it actually inhibited, it actually was able to kill some of those plasmoids and then inhibit some of the applications of malaria, growing further in its life cycle. So that's how they actually had, that was the first treatment for malaria they have been using, since pretty much the 1900s, from 1900. And, so that's how it pretty much first got started, as they were using it as a dye, looking at it under the microscope and things like that. So it's pretty cool. It's like, man, it transitioned. And that's the one thing about it, man, it's so versatile. So many use cases, like when it comes to malaria in the methylglobemia, and then when it comes to Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and all these different things, it's pretty crazy to see how textile dye can be so beneficial to so many different patients.
No, it is, and methylene blue, man. As I got into my research on it, it's the first drug. First synthetic drug. It's like the first. It's like all rose methylene blue, man. It's like, as a pharmacist, I mean, you can't help but appreciate that, man. It's like this is it.
There's so many studies on there about it, like thousands of studies done on so many different kinds of things. So that always helps as well, right? When it comes to clinical data behind it. And of course, my compounding team, it gets everywhere, right? So they're like, wow, more methylene blue, literally like everywhere. So we have like one hood dedicated just for the methylene blue because it makes a mess, but.
No, it's cool. And that's when you look at some of the like random like videos out there. Everyone talks about like it stains everything, blue gets everywhere. And it's like, and we'll talk about like how it can, some of the things to look out for it if you're taking methylene blue, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But here's the thing, man. And just how, even in the intro, we kind of mentioned it, it's so unique in how it helps mitochondrial function. But here's the thing, man, like there's so many mitochondrial supplements, right? So if you Google or go on ChatGPT and say, hey, what supplements are great for my mitochondria, you're going to see a ton. You're going to see CoQ10, you're going to see alpha lipoic acid, you're going to see resveratrol, you're going to see NMN, you're going to see NR, you're going to see a laundry list of supplements that can help with mitochondrial function. But what makes methylene blue so unique and different than some of these supplements that are out there on the market?
So what methylene, like its mechanism of action, working directly on the electron transport chain and working on multiple complexes. Like sometimes those supplements, they work on one part of the complex, right? Either complex 1, complex 2 for CoQ10, all the NAD precursors usually on complex 1. So, but methylene blue will bypass all those complexes. And that's where a lot of people have issues, is those first 3 complexes. They even did a study where they had like sedentary people that were healthy and the healthy people who were active, and the sedentary people had mitochondrial dysfunction in those first two complexes, right? So that's where the main issues are. And, that's where most of the reactive oxidative species can be generated from that in the mitochondria. So with methylene blue's ability to essentially bypass those first three complexes, it's, it works, out of the five on, 3/5 of it. So it definitely kind of, is almost like doing all those supplements together.
Which is good. And so this is where I think we need to kind of do a little bit of a biochem here, a little OChem, little biochem mix here. So I want to kind of talk about the electron transport chain, because most of us, we had biology back in the day, all the mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell. Yep, got it. Mm-hmm. So let's kind of step it back a little bit, because I think if we kind of break down how the electron transport chain works a little bit, I think it'll make more sense to people who are not familiar with that, right? And so to me, and the way I kind of, because again, as a provider, it's like, okay, I got to explain this methylene blue and I got to explain this electron transport chain, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, the way I kind of like talk about it is I always talk about like that electron transport chain, the endomitochondrial membrane is kind of like a conveyor belt in like a factory. And the end product of your conveyor belt, like you're not making a car battery, you're making ATP or energy. Mm-hmm. And that conveyor belt is basically taking that electron from different parts. It's basically shuttling that electron. It's like, hey, go to one, pass it on, you do your thing and all of that. So, but there's some other components to that. So do you think it's more of a conveyor belt thing, or is it more of a hot potato kind of thing where it's just like, I pass it? Or more like football thing. We were talking about football earlier. Is it the lateral? Is it the lateral, the last play of the game? I'm going to run 10 yards lateral to my buddy here. Like, how would you best explain that process?
I think, probably just conveyor belt, just because of like how far down the electron transport chain it goes. Because it, like I said, it can go straight to complex 4 and go straight to cytochrome 3 and start donating, let's say NADH, and then you have CoQ10, which will help that facilitation of electron transport chain through complex 1 and 2. Well, you don't even need any of that, right? You just go straight to cytochrome C. So conveyor belt around, and yeah. So I think that's probably how, and then, but what the great part is because, you have that conveyor belt, it gives the mitochondria a chance to fix those complexes instead of it like always trying to work and always trying to, and if it's broken, then, if it's always trying to, doesn't have a chance to fix itself. So the mitochondria will come and decrease that stress. The mitochondria can come either if the complex is too far apart or whatever the issue is, and that's some of the researchers that probably don't know what's going on and trying, but it will fix itself because, there's not as much stress. The conveyor belt is helping the mitochondria fix itself while it's still producing energy.
Yep. And so again, I love the science of it, man. It's so hard to explain sometimes, but I think it makes sense. And I think the one concept I think that is important when we talk about this is this whole redox thing, right? And when redox is blowing up, man, it's kind of like becoming a hot topic here.
For sure.
But we've been talking about redox, hell, man, since like chemistry 101, and is that basically when it comes to electrons, we're either reducing or oxidizing, right? And so essentially the way I like people to explain it is like these electrons, as we're on that conveyor belt, there's a process of basically, donating and accepting electrons. So again, it's not so much like, hey, it's that conveyor belt. So I'm going to donate to you. You're going to accept it. You're going to donate to the next complex. And so if you look at that inner membrane, you have these complexes kind of lined up. And those electrons are basically kind of going back and forth, donate, accept, donate, accept. At the end product, and this is where it's going to really make more sense. We go into some of the benefits, is producing more ATP. Producing that ATP, but also, that's the other thing we talk about when I say, hey, if you have that busted conveyor belt, the other issue is that it's almost like if your car engine isn't working well and I keep stepping on the gas, I'm going to put out you're going to get fumes out the back, or, that's probably a shitty analogy right there. But, so essentially, dysfunction, and that dysfunction is oxidative stress, right? And I think so having a more efficient electron transport chain kind of improves that, right? So, and I think that's the thing that makes methylene blue really cool, is because it can do both. Exactly. Where I think a lot of molecules kind of have that, hey, I'm a reducing agent, I'm an oxidizing agent, but rare is the compound that does both. And I think that makes methylene blue like fascinating in how it works.
For sure, and like you said, with its ability to do both, and decreasing that ROS in the mitochondria as well is huge. Given, like you said, giving it that chance to then fix itself.
Now, you kind of mentioned, some of the different complexes here. Is there, so 1 and 2, the first two, these are the ones that tend to be the most, say, dysfunctional in most people, right? They tend to have the kind of the most issues. Now, the end thing, is it about getting those electrons to complex 4, or is that cytochrome C oxidase? Is that kind of like the end goal? That's where we want to end up, right? Is
exactly.
that okay?
And
gotcha.
then, that's where red light therapy comes in too, because it helps energize that cytochrome C oxidase, just to may help pull electrons even faster from the methylene blue. So that's where you get that increased efficiency and increased benefit in doing those together.
Amazing, man. It's amazing. So this is really cool, because I think when we get into, and we're almost there, I know people like, these guys are geeking out. This is the nerdiest podcast I've ever seen. Because I think I think the key to this, I think it's so essential to understand how this is working, because when we go into these benefits of methylene blue, they really do have to do with how we're kind of bypassing and improving these mitochondrial bottlenecks. So when it comes down to it, it's just like, for instance, and then I'm going to definitely ask you about these. So when it comes to the brain, so the brain is so dependent on efficient mitochondrial function. So basically, if I can get improved mitochondrial function in the brain, I can reduce the oxidative stress. That's the value. And we talk about these neurodegenerative diseases that are so driven by oxidative stress. So I think that's key, that I want people to understand, like, this is the thing, getting the mitochondrial functioning better, improving that efficiency of the electron transport chain is what's going to drive all these benefits that we're going to talk about. So I just want to make sure we love that part here, man. So before we move on,
like you said, there's mitochondria in every cell in your body, right? And then even some organs have more than others, like the heart, the brain, the liver, the kidneys, right? So that's where it's like, man, when we talk about the benefits, it's like where there's tissues that have so much mitochondria, and if there's issues, particularly in the brain, things like that, is where we see those benefits. And it has, in Alzheimer's, it has some other benefits too when it comes to tau clearance and things like that. But that's because the mitochondria is working so poorly in the beginning. So, and a lot of people, mitochondrial dysfunction is the root of all disease, right? So that's, that's it. A lot of people feel that way. So it's that's why it has, like how versatile it is in so many different indications. It's because decreasing the oxidative stress can do wonders for a lot of different things.
True. So this is where it's fun. Now I want to thank all the listeners for getting through that with us, man. That was the worst. That was the toughest part of the podcast here, trying to get in the science of it. Now we get to have some fun and talk about the benefits, right? And so we know it's improving mitochondrial function. We know it's reducing oxidative stress, but what does that mean to the patient? So to ask that question even more directly, what are the benefits of methylene blue?
Well, I mean, do you want to start in the brain, or
let's work our way down. Man, let's start from the top, work our way down, man. From the top, work our way down.
One, too, is, and I know you're probably going to ask me later, which one do you see, like, either where I'm excited for it to head is Alzheimer's disease, right? It's just because there's, like, the treatments available for that are so, there aren't many good ones, right? So I think the benefit there when we talk about increasing the mitochondrial function will help decrease the amount of tau that your brain is producing, that your brain is producing, but then also it helps increase phagocytic and macrocytic activity to actually help clear tau clearance as well. So it's not going to clear the beta amyloids that are already there, but it's definitely going to prevent any new ones from being formed.
Oh, that's crazy good.
Yeah.
Can't beat that.
No.
So that's a good point here, because I looked at a study, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was like, wait a minute, are they trying to say it? Because it definitely reduces those tau protein tangles, but if I'm hearing you right, it's not going to reduce existing plaque. So if you have that, that's kind of there, but maybe the prevention of new plaque as well.
Exactly. And that's, you start early prevention and treatment. You can use genomics and things to to help, like, identify risk in patients and say, hey, you would benefit from starting methylene blue earlier because you have a high risk of Alzheimer's and things like that. So it's like, you can definitely make it a part of a longevity protocol based on patients' risk.
Got it. So now we got the neuroprotection. So what's next on your list of benefits?
Well, I mean, we can definitely stay in the brain when it comes to Parkinson's disease too, right? So, I mean, when it comes to decreasing that oxidative stress, and when it comes to protecting certain parts of the brain that will prevent all those issues that Parkinson's can have, right? So there's, excuse me,
Sorry.
I think when it comes to it, there's the striatal neuroprotection with methylene blue. So different parts of the the substantia nigra compacta, right? Certain aspects, certain parts of the brain where that loss of, dopaminergic loss and motor impairment happens, methylene blue can be beneficial. It also is a, MOA, enzyme inhibitor as well. So you get an increase in dopamine and an increase in serotonin and an increase in norepinephrine, which can cause issues in Parkinson's disease as well.
Okay. I am going to put you on the spot and make you define what is a substantia nigra compacta, because if you did not go to med school or pharmacy school, you literally just went on Google. Hell, I just went on Google. It's been that long since I've heard that word.
So that is a critical structure within the midbrain, which is a subdivision of the substantia nigra, which plays a key role in motor control, reward processing, and cognitive function throughout its dopaminergic neurons. So when you because like we said, methylene blue just has that effect on dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. It can help prevent that degradation of that part of the brain, which can then cause tremors and issues with Parkinson's disease.
Okay. Now, is this, just because I know you've kind of gotten deep to the research on it, is this something that's are there clinical studies showing that, or is this more in the animal study part of the world with that?
No, so they do have, in smaller trials for Parkinson's disease. In Alzheimer's, they do have there's multiple trials and, even long ones, 50 weeks plus. The Parkinson's disease is something that's smaller that they're currently investigating.
Well, I'm definitely going to read up on that, man, for sure. All right. So now we got some of the neuroprotective, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. What's next? What's next on your hot list?
Probably going to be still sticking in the brain and some mood disorders, right? So when it comes to bipolar disorder and when it comes to major depressive symptoms and bipolar disorder in particular, and other kinds of mood disorders. So at higher doses is what they're doing. And then we're talking about 200, 300 milligrams a day. We do see effects when it comes to serotonergic effects and increased dopamine, likely to dopamine, but much higher doses than we do see when it comes to Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. But it can be used as adjunct therapy in some of those patients that are either failed other kinds of SSRIs or other therapies in that realm.
Awesome. All right, man. You're still on the spot. What's next? What you got?
So we did all those. I think we could probably go to COVID probably now, or any kind of viral infections. It was or even long COVID, right? So for current infections, it can help inhibit that viral response. So it definitely helps, and it has some anti-inflammatory properties and helps with muscle, the muscle pains of viral infections as well. So overall, man, we were using 25 milligrams twice a day for a week or two, and it definitely helped decrease how long patients were having viral infections and things like that. And then and then they had a study out of Germany. Frank loves this one because one, it was a nasal spray, and then two, they used red light therapy in the mouth actually in combination. But it got to there was it was 1,200 patients, 600 were on methylene blue with red light therapy. The other 600 were on placebo, and they found that it was an 83% reduction in hospitalization, a 90% reduction in ICU admission, and a 90% decrease in death within that group. So it was huge outcomes on that side when it came to preventing severe illness.
Oh, amazing. So I kind of want to close this loop on this too, man. So from everything you're saying, I'm understanding that methylene blue is going to enhance mitochondrial function.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So we know that's going to help with energy production. And those who know mitochondrial function improvement, that's kind of like your DNA repair, cellular repair on that.
Mm-hmm.
We know this neuroprotective, got some potential benefits in many conditions that are in that realm with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So a lot of people, and we get into some of the people that, ask about methylene blue, have been talking about it longer than I have. It's more in the anti-aging and longevity world. So what role does methylene blue play in anti-aging and longevity?
We definitely talked about that oxidative stress role, right? And if we can decrease that in multiple systems in the body, it's going to help prevent, longevity. so help preserve longevity. So it's going to be, I think, topically we've seen it be beneficial when it comes to, just overall skin quality and helping skin, repair itself, orally. Like I know generally if patients are relatively healthy and they kind of want to do it, we will generally recommend 2 to 3 months at a time and then take a little break, right? Too much over reduction, like, can maybe cause issues down the road. So, we're definitely pretty conservative on that side with it. Maybe too much reduction cause hemolysis issues, things like that. I mean, we do dose it pretty low, so it's not a big concern. Like I said, in those Alzheimer's disease, trials, they're doing it for 50, 52 weeks at a time, not having any issues, right? So, of course, you have to identify if the benefits can outweigh any kind of risk involved. But yeah, I think when it comes to, if you ask anybody, right, brain fog and chronic fatigue, those are probably two symptoms that almost all your patients are going to have. And it's something that can definitely be beneficial on that side of, and then helping just increase mitochondrial dysfunction to help just prevent any issues that may pop up. I think when it comes to longevity, we talk about preventing or identifying risk and then preventing any issues in the future. And I think that prevention aspect of how methylene blue can help just be protective can definitely be installed in longevity protocols.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's kind of we're going to talk more into the dosing thing, and that was one of the first lectures that I got a chance to pretty much to listen into was one from PCCA, and they talked about the whole concept of methylene blue and hormesis, how you're getting these benefits at the lower doses, but if you go too high, which is probably more than the studies and the Alzheimer's stuff, it's like, because again, that's the natural thing. It's like, oh my God, if 20 milligrams is good, man,
More
300,
yeah,
man, 300, oh, let's do it.
Exactly.
Sign me up. And now you're kind of overdoing it, right? There's a thing, and even some of the lectures we've been to, they talk about too much reduction, trying to reduce oxidative stress too much, how that can be harmful in the long term. And because the body needs stress to adapt. So if I'm constantly suppressing it, how are you kind of adapting and improving it? And, especially when it comes to athletic performance and actually anti-aging, you have to have a little bit of balance there, right? So let's take it from kind of the science and some of the real world stuff here, some more of the clinical kind of applications and uses, right? So I guess, and one of the things that many of my patients say when we start them on methylene blue is like, man, my memory, my focus, my concentration, from what you've been seeing with your patients and down at the pharmacy and at NuBioAge, what benefits are you seeing with cognitive function with using methylene blue?
Like I said, that ability just to be more focused, maybe notice things that you haven't noticed before, right? And that's just something that, that you had said to me that I definitely resonated with. Just being able to kind of just clear out the noise sometimes and just being able to just focus on, with so much stuff going on, right? It's like, man, sometimes I'm all over the place, and it's like, all right, I really got to focus on this, and let's get it done. And it's, like I said, we do a lot of the VO2 max testing and things like that. We've seen some increases in zones, right? So like even like a 2-week period, someone's zone 2 jumps up like 10, 15, 20 beats per minute. And whether that's due to the mitochondrial improvements or it even has an effect on helping your hemoglobin hold on to oxygen better as well. So is it the increased the oxygen production from the methylene blue, or is it the increased mitochondrial function? I don't know that answer, but it is cool when you see someone's zone 2 jump up, in 2 weeks. So, but I think on the cognitive side, it definitely, that increased focus is the biggest thing. So it can sometimes wear off about 4 or 5 hours. The half-life is around 5.5, 6 hours. So that definitely is pretty seen. So usually 1 in the morning, and then you can either do a second one in the afternoon, or, a lot of people in the office like the nicotine troches, 1 milligram in the afternoon as well. That one's about 3-4 hours, but that's, man, I just, that increased focus, and it's not stimulant like, right? It's not like you're buzzing. It's just like a calmness. It's kind of hard to explain, and definitely until you do it.
Yeah. So what's really cool, and I noticed this too, is like the first time I took methylene blue, and the research backed it up. I saw some studies that showed that methylene blue is going to help with that short-term memory and kind of attention after literally 1 dose. When they actually looked at the studies here. But I will tell you that, like, and I don't know if you're seeing, is like, it's kind of like most things, that first couple times you do something is like, whoa, right? And then you kind of hit like a steady state, kind of like, okay, I'm here. Now, when it comes to cognition, memory, focus, are you seeing any kind of leveling off after people have been on it for a while, or is it kind of constantly going up?
No,
Or
I
is it
think
more
that,
of like they have to increase the dose?
yeah,
more?
probably have to increase the dose, right? Yeah, I think, especially we recommend starting at 10 milligrams, and then we have 15, 20, 25, we can compound it, whatever, right? So definitely starting at 10, probably after 4 to 6 weeks, assess, see how they're doing. And then from there, you can, go up. Like we recommend on the cognitive function, mitochondrial support side, 25 milligrams twice a day is a good place to be. And that's what's even, with people who are on SSRIs, right? We could talk a little bit about side effects, things like that, contraindications. I think it's always good. But one thing that, we've seen in practice, right? I mean, if people are on SSRIs or other kind of things that can affect serotonin, it's like, hey, that low dose, 5-10 milligrams twice a day, I haven't had any patients have any issues, with it. Of course, I'd still count them on signs and symptoms of serotonin syndrome. But if you see some benefit there, I just haven't seen, the risk or any issues with it associated to it. Of course, you might have a patient who's a fast metabolizer or a slow metabolizer of serotonin, and that's why you get higher levels than normal. And they can have issues, but it's just I haven't seen it in practice.
Okay. Now, kind of linking some of these hallmarks of aging, and that's my thing. Aging longevity is my jam, man. And so when we think about, and we're kind of going back to the oxidative stress, and I always link oxidative stress and inflammation because they kind of feed each other. It's kind of like a really bad kind of loop and circle right there. Are you seeing any decrease in inflammation in some of the biomarkers with people on methylene blue?
Yeah, so that's what, when I was talking with Lexi about it, one of the first things that she'll measure is HCRP in patients, right? And I think that's, and then we were talking about earlier just how hard it is to measure mitochondrial efficiencies. It's just something that there is no direct science for it yet. I mean, we have seen some anti-inflammatory effects that by inhibiting the going back into kind of the science of it, like macrophage NLRP3 inflammasome complexes. So that's how it helps when, especially when it came to COVID in particular, helping decrease that inflammatory status in a lot of patients. So, I mean, in those patients that are in viral infections, yeah, you're definitely going to see a decrease in HCRP. If it's a healthy patient and maybe they're just kind of stressed out a little more than general, maybe not. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was.
Nice. And so, and for those who, have not heard of CRP, C-reactive protein, acute phase reaction, anything that causes inflammation is going to cause. So we always say CRP is sensitive, but not specific. So when I say sensitive, it's like, hey, if it's higher, I know you have inflammation, but it's not telling me where the inflammation is coming from, right? So that's kind of where it's a good marker. But if you see that, like, hey, I'm here and I've ran your last 5 labs, your HSCRP or CRP has been in the 2s. I was showing methylene blue, haven't changed anything else. Like, wait a minute, it's 0.8. Got something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we kind of correlate. There's other factors that go into it, but it is good. We're kind of limited because you hit a big point. I can't really test you for mitochondrial function. I can look at your CRP. I can look at your 8-hydroxy deoxyguanoside or 8-OHDG, which is more of an oxidative stress kind of thing, but it's not really direct. So I think that's important, but you can look at those markers and kind of track the changes. So one thing that I found out in preparing from this, and like I said, I've been diving into it as we began to use it in practice, is I'm starting to see a lot of insights or a lot of papers and actually anecdotal stuff on how methylene blue can help with wound healing and skin health. So, which I was like, wait a minute, this is kind of starting to blow my mind a little bit. It's like, I got you on mitochondria, I got you on oxidative stress, but what is it? What is the role of methylene blue in wound healing and skin?
Yes, I mean, a little bit has to do with some of the microbial effects that it has, just been able to keep the wound clean. And then when it comes to the mitochondrial support there, just in healing, you might have to help me out with this one just a little bit since you were diving deep into it. I know we do have a wound healing gel and then hydrogel, and I believe it has to do with helping some of those just growth factors get to the areas of trauma, if I'm correct, or was there something else that you were saying, and then maybe there is a newer paper that I haven't read yet.
So there's a paper that I was looking at. I think it was from 2017 or 2018, and it was talking about oxidative stress. Number one, for skin health, that is what ages people quickly. Because you have a high level of oxidative stress, that's wrinkles, that's hyperpigmentation, that's difficulty for healing from wounds. But essentially, I always tell my patients, like, think of inflammation as heat, think of oxidative stress as rust, right? So anything that can help reduce oxidative stress is going to help with skin health, right?
Mhm.
And so, but we know when you think about, like, what do people do for skin health? They're doing vitamin C, they're doing glutathione.
Right.
So it's no secret in the skin health aesthetics world that antioxidants help with skin health. No secret there, but just knowing how potent methylene blue is and like scavenging reactive oxidative species, which are the things that drive that oxidative stress, that's humongous. The other thing it talked about was gene expression analysis, and showed that methylene blue actually can increase these extracellular matrix proteins. These are things that kind of help with collagen and elastin. And anyone that knows skin health knows that collagen, this is why people are taking collagen proteins, right? It's like, I want more collagen, I want more elastin to help with skin. So I think it's a combination of the reduction in oxidative stress and also the upregulation of the kind of gene expression of elastin and collagen. That's kind of my understanding of it. So
Does that go great with some TB4 and a gel? Throw that thing on there, probably be fantastic.
bring it on, man. Bring it on, man. I got a little something. We get into some of the antimicrobial stuff. I got a little personal story. It's going to be embarrassing, but it ain't like I got 1,000 people listening to this podcast. So, I hope nobody run up on me in the street like, oh, ew. Right? We'll talk about that.
Right,
So the next thing is, so we got the man, so many cool things. We got the brain function. We got the inflammation. So I want to kind of circle back to some of the antimicrobial stuff, because Frank, and so when we say Frank, we're talking about Frank Kaku. I always say messes last Kaku.
Yeah,
Kaku.
there you go.
Is that how he says it? You're there every day, man.
Man,
He's gonna be like,
funny, so I call him Frank because he calls me Aiden. He doesn't call me the right name. I don't call him the right name, right? So but his last name is Kaku. Yes.
Yeah, Kaku. So Frank is he's been on the podcast before. I believe we did an erectile dysfunction one. He, we were gonna do some. We're gonna bring him on next year, but we were talking about methylene blue, and he said something that I was like, man, for real, Frank. And let me Google that shit. Get on PubMed, because he was like, if you give a female with a history of urinary tract infections methylene blue, she'll never get another UTI again. I was like, man, tequila talking? Is this for real? Like, never again? But when I looked into the research on, we know it's antimicrobial, we know it has these, decreases pathogens, but it made sense because when you take any supplement, especially methylene blue, it's going to accumulate in the bladder. And this is where you're getting some of that E. coli buildup and all of that. So, and I hadn't talked to him about it again. I just kind of heard it. I was like, man, I didn't say it to him. I was like, I'm gonna look that shit up front. Never. Let me see what's going on here. It makes sense. But from your understanding of it is, I know that's one part of the equation with antimicrobial stuff, but is that what you're kind of seeing when it comes to the UTI kind of urinary tract stuff?
Yeah, so that's what, and we talked about. I talked about it with Lexi a couple of days ago. She, 4 or 5 milligram capsule right before bed. Right, it's a low enough dose where you don't get that increase in energy, increased focus feeling, but enough that where it sits in the bladder will help coat the bladder, help prevent any kind of microbial buildup. And then when patients, their urine will be blue, it's going to have the methylene blue in it. And then will kind of coat the lining of the ureter and things like that to help prevent any kind of bacterial infection.
Gotcha. So, little story time. So, I have been dealing with onychomycosis for an ungodly amount of time. It's embarrassing that as a whole naturopathic doctor, I should not have fungus on my damn toenails, man. It's like I know too much. And I've tried a lot of stuff, man. I've tried the topical tea tree oil. I tried some topical oregano. It just ain't moving. Hey, man, I ain't perfect.
Yeah,
I ain't perfect, man. We all got something. Mm-hmm. Everybody got something. Don't judge me and don't at me. I got it. And so I'm about 2.5, 3 months into my methylene blue journey, dude. I was kind of doing some post-workout stuff, because now as I'm getting older, I do recovery stuff. I used to just work out, don't stretch. Now I got the Theragun, man. I'm doing my cupping, all that. Yeah. And I looked, no shit. I looked and I was like, this toenail fungus it's almost gone. It was crazy. I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
And I was like,
and that's a cool part, because usually the most of those treatments take 6 months, like the Jubilee and all those crazy things, right? So, there was a study they did, a topical one, and they hit it with red light therapy as well. And like, in 12 weeks, 70-80% of the patients had no growth, right? And that's crazy, so
no, it's nuts.
you're even seeing a benefit just doing the oral one. That's awesome, right?
Man,
So like
dude,
it's working.
where I'm going with this, Hayden, is toes out summer 2025.
There we go.
You see this hand? This is it. You're gonna see me at the conference, toes out, man. 'Cause I'm just so happy to watch this out. But that being said, so what I was thinking about for people, obviously mine wasn't that severe, just annoying, it didn't go away. But what I was thinking about is like, okay, how can I help other people with this? So I was actually thinking about using methylene blue. I was actually going to text you about it. Is what if we do a topical terbinafine? Because oral is the worst on the liver, right? It's a horrible drug, but topical, because it's not going systemic. What if we try to do terbinafine and methylene blue is like almost like a nail polish?
Yeah, definitely, man. We'll, I'll have the girls whip it up, and they won't be happy, but it's okay. And then we'll send it over to you.
I almost want to throw some ketoconazole in there too. I don't know if it might be too much, man. But I was kind of thinking maybe just starting with those two, because it's a good one. We know what those two things, we do. Sure. The antifungal might be a little stretched though, man. But I'm here, dude. I'm here for not only my own toes, but the toes of people watching it who've been too embarrassed to get that shit taken care of. Yeah. I just need it fixed, man. It's been too long, my friend. It's been too long. All right, now that I've thoroughly embarrassed myself, let's move on. Okay, so let's talk about some of these synergistic therapies, the things that work well with methylene blue. And now you mentioned red light therapy, and again, improving the kind of functional complex
oxidase activity.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, is there a timing thing with that? As in, hey, I take my methylene blue, and I want to do red light. Should I wait 20, 30 minutes? Can I do it right away?
I mean, because we can talk about like right when you take it, you feel the benefit, right? It has great tissue absorption. And even when it comes to the methyglobemia, when they use it in cyanide poisoning, like it works right away. So, that's the thing. You take your dose, right into the, either red light bed or for the foot, mouth, whatever red light, apparatus you're going to use immediately after the dose. I even have some providers that tell their patients, like, get outside for 15, 20 minutes, go for a walk immediately after your dose, get some sunlight, will help, with the effectiveness of the dose.
That's great. I like that. So do it right away. I'm on it, man. I'm on it. I actually I have a red light therapy panel, but it's an old school one and it hangs on the wall. So I took a TV stand and built myself like a red light panel thing. If I had access to my pictures right here, I'm not proud of my craftsmanship, but it works. So I'm excited to come. It works, man. It works. So I want to kind of shift gears on some of this synergistic therapy because we do a lot of NAD in my office, right? We do a lot of NAD sub-Q, we do NAD IVs, and so now I've been introducing more methylene blue. And I knew the question was coming, and we're starting to get it a lot more from patients. It's like, hey, I'm doing NAD. You're talking about methylene blue, maybe financially, or maybe just like people just take so many things. It's like, if I had to pick between NAD and methylene blue, which do I do? Which is a great question, because when you think about NAD and what it's doing, sending that NAD molecule to electron transport chain to improve mitochondrial function, although it's not doing redox, it's very similar in improving that. And so we get the question is like, hey, if I had to pick between the two, or because their benefits seem very similar, what do you think the advantages of methylene blue or disadvantages of methylene blue are versus NAD?
Well, disadvantage, you have blue urine, but
of course,
and I just think, man, with NAD has its place, right? Like it's extremely beneficial. I think if your patient is just extremely worn out, either post some kind of viral infection or fighting something, right? Extremely exhausted, overworked, things like that. NAD, great. I just think, when it comes to helping repair the mitochondrial, and decreasing the reactive oxidative species, like sometimes if your mitochondria is broken and doing a bunch of NAD, right? Like you said, you're filling it with gas, but if the motor's broken, you're not going to get the end product that you're looking for, right? So I think, methylene blue would probably be more versatile. More of your patients would probably benefit more from methylene blue. And I think it's one that you probably feel more as well, right? Like NAD, doing the sub-Q, you might get a little bit of like an energy feel, but sometimes, especially you doing it continuously for a little bit, you don't really feel it. But methylene blue, you'll continue to feel. And I think that's something too that patients will definitely appreciate a little more.
Yeah, I'm a big NAD guy, but I tend to cycle off of it too. And you're right. I used to take NAD, man. It would knock me on my ass, man. I'm like, oh my God, I got to sit down. Like my legs are so heavy and my chest hurts. Now I'm just like, I think I'm good, you know? But what I've noticed, and this is also, and I haven't seen this in a study, is that what I have been seeing and also talk to patients about is I feel that this is just a Dr. Jones thing, is that I feel when it comes to, let's say, all things aside, you got person's foundations good, their hormones are good, they're not under, any type of pro-inflammatory issues, diet is good, all that. I'm going to lean more NAD if I'm trying to focus on more physical energy.
Okay.
And more athletic performance in many ways too. I'm going to lean towards methylene blue if I'm thinking more mental energy. So if you have the brain fog, I've got a big project at work, mental drive is what I want to do. I tend to kind of separate it that way because I think methylene blue has a little bit of that crossing the blood-brain barrier. I think it's a little bit more effective on some of the kind of brain mitochondria. Again, this is a Dr. Jones thing. There's no case studies on this. It's just what I'm seeing clinically and on myself that's where I kind of take it. Now, you can definitely look at doing both. And I know you guys had the webinar. And I crashed the webinar, accidentally raised my hand. It was a whole thing. It was like, oh damn, they saw me, and I couldn't get off.
And then I kicked you out afterwards, right?
Yeah. I was like, that's stupid ass question. Kick his ass out of the podcast. He's out of the podcast. Yeah. He's out of the webinar. Because, and that's why I mentioned in that was because, especially there are people who are doing higher doses of NAD. I kind of feel like if you're going, man, you're hard to paint NAD. Some 200 milligrams 3 or 4 times a week. There are people who are doing that. And I start showing methylene blue. I'm probably going to back down that NAD if you're dosing it that high. I think that's just a lot of gas on that electron transport chain, right?
For sure. Like you said, over-revving it sometimes too. And I would employ you have some of your, your patients who are doing the endurance training, lifting, things like that to maybe try methylene blue and see if it does improve, some of their times, things, or increase some of their zones, things like that. It's just something anecdotal we've seen in a small amount of patients, but maybe on that increasing performance side, you'll even see some benefit there as well.
Okay. So the one that I'm actually kind of fascinated in, because I actually did a podcast with another pharmacist a couple of weeks ago, and we got deep into LDN, low dose naltrexone. And when I think about some of the benefits of LDN, we're reducing inflammation. And LDN, there are some studies that can also help, maybe not indirectly improve mitochondrial function. But have you seen any combinations or pairing of low-dose naltrexone or LDN with methylene blue?
Yeah, we have a formulation with it. It is a lower dose of methylene blue. Just because usually with LDN, we recommend taking it at night, right? So you don't want to do a super high dose of methylene blue right before bed. But yeah, I mean, or if you want to do it in conjunction, right? Like methylene blue in the morning, LDN at night, I definitely see it, can be being beneficial for, COVID, post-COVID, things like that, helping, you have increasing, decreasing oxidative stress and then decreasing inflammation on the front end, right? So I think it'd be definitely beneficial doing that together.
Yeah. The one that I think about and, just I don't really get it. I don't know, man. I just don't have a ton of chronic fatigue syndrome. I don't have a ton of fibromyalgia cases, but I think if I come across one after we kind of address the foundational stuff, I think I'm going to start thinking LDN and methylene blue.
Yeah.
In those cases, because I think about LDN and reducing the inflammation and, kind of getting those endorphins increase. And then a lot of these chronic fatigue cases, it's mitochondrial dysfunction.
Yeah.
So I think it might be a 1-2 punch, but I think that was a really good salient point you made is like, hey, separate them, because obviously you don't want to do methylene blue at night when LDN is known to be most effective. And now you can't sleep. It's like, man, I'm out of pain, but good Lord, I can't sleep. So exactly. I'm more tired, right?
Like I said, we do have a lower dose one, but I would probably split it.
Yeah, I like that. So we've kind of been slowly talking about this, man, before we get you out of here, because this is the thing. If, when my patients start talking about methylene blue to me, they're like, man, I got this methylene blue off Amazon. I'm just like, well, I don't recommend you get anything off Amazon, especially not methylene blue. But I mean by anything off of Amazon, I mean like medications, right?
For sure.
And so why is it important from your perspective to use pharmaceutical grade, clinical grade methylene blue versus the things you can get off the internet?
No, that's huge, right? Because when you get in USP pharmaceutical grade methylene blue, it's all about the impurities. Unfortunately, other grades of methylene blue, FCC or lab grade, are going to have 8 to 11% of impurities, and that's just not. We're talking about lead, mercury, really not good things, right? So like the level of impurities in those other products can be extreme. You probably do more harm than benefit that you're doing. So in the pharmaceutical grade, USP grade, it's going to be less than 0.5% of any impurities. And you can have C of A's for all the, all the product that you're getting. So, if you wanted to see the COA of our methylene blue, it comes from PCCA, we'll send it to you, right? It's going to be as clean as possible. And to make, unfortunately, there's just not that tight regulation when it comes to supplements or over-the-counter products. You have no idea what those companies, and you can ask them, and some of them may, but that's the thing. If it's USP grade, it needs to come from a pharmacy. Those other ones, FCC grade, lab grade, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah. And that was one of the first questions when I started learning methylene blue, and I asked Frank about it. I was like, dude, like, this is a drug. It's in the hospitals, man. Cyanide poisoning. And, and you mentioned malaria.
Septic shock, vasopression, things like that.
Yeah. So, and really what Frank was saying, there's that loophole, which a lot of, that loophole is that if you get it as food grade, which is not pharmaceutical grade, you can say, well, this is technically a dye, and you kind of can get away with it, right? And I think you hit the big point is like, well, and obviously I believe there's another grade. I think the worst is chemical grade. I think chemical grade is like 20 to 30%. And I think the industrial grade, which the more you're talking about, that food grade can be that 8 to 10%. But those impurities, this is where I think it defeats the purpose. And I've never had anyone say, hey, I've been getting it online for a long period of time. But my guess is in the beginning, maybe the first few times they do it, you're getting the benefit. But over time, because those impurities decrease, right, they increase oxidative stress. So the more lead, mercury, arsenic you're doing, you're harming your mitochondria. And I wonder if some of these people that are doing that crappier methylene blue, if they're getting that increase and then they're dipping over time. I've never really had a conversation with anyone that's been like, yeah, I've been doing online methylene blue droppers for 2 years. I just haven't had it yet.
I think that's the one thing too. It hasn't been around long enough to see some of those detrimental effects, right? Like methylene blue really, I think really started gaining a lot of traction. I want to say around last April, March, right? People started getting into it more, things like that. And then I remember, I think it was around May, June, I started seeing some of the online stuff coming up, right? There's probably always been like an online market for it, but when it really started blowing up and people, I'm getting it, online, getting it from this place or whatever. So yeah, I don't know if it's been around long enough for people to start, but maybe in a year or two, you'll start seeing, I was doing the over-the-counter one and I got really sick, and it's like, well, unfortunately that, there's a reason for that. So.
Yeah. Good thing to know there. So again, the takeaway from that is don't buy methylene blue that just says methylene blue on the bottle. That's all it says in the bottle, like methylene blue.
Yeah,
1 ml, right?
It could be a fish clean. They use it in in fish treatments for for parasites and other things like that, right? So definitely important to get from a pharmacy.
I know. Stay safe, people. Stay safe. So the next thing, you kind of mentioned some of the starting doses, and you mentioned that some of the starting doses you guys have are in the 5 milligram level, pretty low. What? With that being said, how do you when you kind of counsel with some of your practitioners and have those consultations with them, how are you kind of determining that right starting dose? Are you going by weight? Are you going by age? Like versus starting 5 versus 10 milligrams? Like, is there kind of a thought process for that?
I think most people like 10 milligrams once a day, right, to start. See how they tolerate it for a week or two, and then you can increase from there. People on 5 milligrams will probably be those patients we talked about. Maybe they're on SSRIs or they're, for the UTIs or bladder things. Mainly the smaller doses. But 10 milligrams is usually where I recommend to start, and then twice a day, and then to slowly just go up from there, depending on how patients are doing.
Gotcha. Now, that being said, and you mentioned it earlier, I want to kind of dive into it. What are some of the potential side effects of methylene blue?
Yeah, so, blue urine is definitely going to be seen. We talk about side effects, but contraindication is going to be G6PD deficiency, right? So that's like 2% of the population. Whether are you doing high dose vitamin C? So you may be checking for it already. So that's something that we definitely have to keep an eye out for, and at the low doses, right? It's, if you're 5-10 milligrams, if someone is, and you haven't checked it yet, right? It's probably not going to be super detrimental, but over time, it can lead to hemolysis and lead to some serious issues. So that's what, I mean, it is a contraindication. It's like, hey, one, they're probably not going to see the benefit from it because the methylene blue needs G6 PD to actually perform its effect. So it's not going to be beneficial, but it can cause issues if you start going into higher doses and haven't checked patients. So always check patients beforehand. But side effects, I mean, it's pretty well tolerated, right? So if patients, on the side effect wise, blue urine, I had one patient get like vasospastic headache from it. She stopped it when she went back on it 2 weeks later, tried it again. It didn't happen again. So, but other than that, man, it's not like your skin turns blue, anything like that. It's really well tolerated. I haven't had too many side effects from it. Like I talked about, serotonin syndrome, things like that. I haven't had a patient. We dispense thousands of capsules a month, and I haven't had one patient ever had any issues with that. Haven't had any reactions either when it comes to skin reactions or patients being allergic to it. It's pretty well tolerated.
Yeah. I had one skin reaction. We don't know for sure, but she's like, we had her on 10 milligrams. We went to 20 and she got a rash. And I was like, oh, let's kind of back it off. So the jury's still out on that. I haven't spoken to her since we stopped the methylene blue, but I mean, it's good to think about it. It is one of the known potential side effects, but it's rare out of the, at this point, I'm in the dozens of methylene blue prescriptions, and that's a one-time thing. So it's no, and I have seen the blue urine. I had one patient actually stop it. She's like, I feel good, but I ain't feeling this blue urine. I'm like, well, yeah. I can't stop that. I mean, I guess I can put you on leukomethylene blue. And then we didn't talk about that in the MOA, is that there are some companies out there selling leukomethylene blue. Mm-hmm. And so methylene blue kind of exists. We talked about that oxidized state and that reduced state.
The reduced state.
Oh man, mm-hmm. The reduced state is leukomethylene blue, and leukomethylene blue is the reduced state, right?
Yeah,
it's colorless, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't know about that, man, because again, it's like, I think with that, it's like with thyroid, when you give people T4, you're expecting the body to do its thing, convert it to T3. If I give you leukomethylene blue, I'm expecting your body to do that.
An extra step.
Process. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if it's going to do it.
Exactly.
So I try to avoid that.
And that's the thing too, right? When it comes to it, like with the methylene blue, if patients are having clear urine, it's because their body's utilizing and reducing the methylene blue efficiently, right? So that's where some patients who are on it, but they're doing red light therapy and things like that. Like your body's cytochrome C is pulling up that electron, and then and now it's clear, and and then you're urinating out the rest. So, like you said, it's really hard to determine. It's like, am I getting the benefit that I should be besides symptomatic, because we can't measure mitochondrial function, right? So it's like, I can feel it.
I don't know. When I first started, man, I was getting a lot of blue green. Now I might get it once a day, twice a day. Man, I'm like, damn it.
That's not a bad thing. It's just you're utilizing it, Especially if you start doing the red light with it, like I'm telling you, man, you might go a couple days without it, So it's just saying that you're using
I can live with it, man. I feel great, man. I can live without it, man. I can live without that, a little bit of that too, because it's still, even to this day, it's a little weird. It's fun, but it's weird.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is when I started getting into some of the studies on it and some of the dosing of it. Is it essential to take methylene blue with food?
It's not. I haven't seen anything in particular that says you have to take it with or without food. The bioavailability is pretty good. You get the lipophilicity and hydrophilicity between it. It passes, the membranes really well. So it doesn't have to be in food or anything like that.
Okay. Awesome, man. We're almost there, man. Home stretch, man. So that's your question here. Cause again, being, with your role though, being the, oh God, man. Director of Clinical Services, right? Director of Clinical Services. I was going to say Clinical Services Director, but I want to make sure I'm accurate with the title. So you're answering a lot of questions from, I'm assuming, mostly practitioners and probably the occasional patient. Mm-hmm. So what are the most common questions you get about methylene blue?
I think it's just in the beginning, it's just that hesitancy of it being a dye. I think it's the biggest barrier to it, right? And maybe some providers have had experiences with it in the ICU or using it for those different things, right? So I think that's probably the biggest thing is like, hey, like you said, talk about that hormetic effect. Like this is dose dependent effects that can that can have benefits other ways. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. They've had experiences with methylene blue outside of what they're using it for, and then knowing like, hey, it's a dye, right? So I think that's probably the biggest barrier in the beginning to get past. But I always tell them like, hey, try it out yourself. try that first and you'll see the benefit. And then, I think the other thing is when it comes to just starting like dosing, and then a side effect profile at the lower doses is so good. It's like, hey, and then I always try to tie it to, like I said, chronic fatigue and brain fog, just because so many patients will fit that bill, right? It's just like, hey, that's a low hanging fruit, right? They're like, hey, try it in some of those patients. You'll see benefit in it, and then it definitely starts to take off.
I love it, man. It's great. I'm sure you get the dosing question. We kind of talked about that.
Mhm.
And then, hey, and I know the big one is you mentioned not seeing that serotonin syndrome. So this is a big one because one of those contraindications when you get into the studies that, hey, if someone's on an antidepressant or an MAOI or a monoamine
Mhm.
oxidase inhibitor for depression or anxiety, is it safe to give them methylene blue, or is it like, no, don't ever do that, or like, yes, but keep the dose low? What are you guys
Yeah,
seeing
so I
with
always say
that?
yes, but keep the dose low, right? And we're talking about 5, 10 milligrams, probably twice a day. And then if you're seeing benefit there, great. But if not, then it's like, hey, let's see whatever you're using it for, but you might have to try other options instead.
Perfect, perfect. All right, man. So let's talk a little bit about the future of methylene blue from your perspective. I know you mentioned being very excited about it in reversing early Alzheimer's disease or kind of treating early Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
Are there any other kind of areas that you're looking forward to methylene blue being a part of in the future?
Um, I think that's it, man. So
Okay.
my great grandmother had Alzheimer's disease, a long time ago. So I think, being able to have a way to prevent the progression of that disease is huge, and I think it benefits so
Hmm.
many patients. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely excited about that. We're starting to get into a bunch of genomics things here at the lab as well. So it's like being able to identify patients who are at high risk and starting them on low dose methylene blue could be extremely beneficial for the longevity of those patients.
Yeah. I think that's a big one. Knowing that how it improves mitochondrial function, because we talk about we go to all these different conferences. I see it. I'm sure people are going to talk about it at Calm. You're gonna get a chance to give a shout out to Calm here in a little bit, man.
Yeah,
Can't let you get away without that. Is that we always talk about how mitochondrial dysfunction being the root cause of so many conditions, right? If you look at heart disease and diabetes and several other arthritis, all these things have a mitochondrial dysfunction. So what I'm looking forward to is once people have been on methylene blue for a while and we have more research, are we going to see improvement in some of these chronic diseases that have a mitochondrial dysfunction component? So that's pretty exciting too. And we'll see.
no, for sure,
We'll see,
man. Yeah.
man.
Yeah, like what we talked. I mean, and it's crazy because there's some other mitochondrial peptides that they've studied in like chronic kidney disease and things like that to show like vast improvement. So yeah, I mean that's like you said, extremely beneficial and in preventing like long term disease in a lot of different cases. So yeah, it was extremely awesome.
I'm glad y'all didn't leave me alone, man. I'm glad you kept at it. Now I'm on team blue,
Deep
team
blue,
methylene
man.
blue.
That's right.
That's it. That's it. So a few more, man. So
There you
what's the one takeaway you hope people will get from listening to this episode?
go. I think it's when it comes to maybe just like a repurposing and looking at old drugs that um, really, kind of giving things a chance too. Repurposing old drugs and giving things a chance. Because I think that's the biggest thing when I talk about methylene blue with providers that are new. They're like, oh, I heard about it, but I don't know. It's just like, hey, I think it's just trying that something new. Giving it a chance because I think sometimes, it's just a confidence thing or an unwillingness to try new things in some patients. So I think I would definitely go with that just because sometimes just people have some preconceived notions on certain things and then they let that get in the way of really helping people. So I would go with that.
Okay. Definitely, man. And then one more on that same vein, a little bit. Is there any advice you'd want to give to practitioners or patients that are listening that are interested in learning more about methylene blue?
I mean, when it comes to if you're a patient, I would definitely consult your provider. If it's like, hey, would this be an excellent, a good choice for myself? We talk about a bunch of different things today, so it's definitely talk to your provider, see if it's a good option. If you are a provider and you want to learn more, you can register with NuBioAge. We have plenty of talks on methylene blue when it comes. We'll probably put this up there as well. So just to have, we try to have as much information as possible, right? And I think the cool part about what we do is I get to talk to providers all over the country daily, right? So I find out what's working, what's not working, get to share the success of our providers with other providers so that they can have success as well. So it's like, we truly, just want to help providers help more patients. So on the website there, it's huge. And then, if you have any questions, I know you said that people reaching out to me. I give my cell phone number out to everybody. If you got questions, text me, email me. I'm really responsive. Just, I always try to help as many people as possible.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. You're a good man. You're a good man. Cause I'm not doing it. You're a good man. Right? So before we let you go, man, for people that want to learn more about the happenings at NuBioAge or learn more about you and what you're doing, how do we find you?
Yeah, well, register at NuBioAge, written right in the front there, it says register here, registered practice, and you can reach out to me. We're having an awesome event in the end of February. It's called the Clinical Application of Longevity Medicine. So how we look where longevity medicine is at, where it's going, and how you can apply it into practice. I think that's something, putting it all together when it comes to treatments, but also diagnostics, trying to put the whole, everything that this space encompasses and to be able to use it Monday morning. Right. So I think, it's going to be a great event. We have some amazing speakers that are going to be there, and I'm really excited to learn and help teach our new wave of practitioners that are coming up, man, because it's definitely taken off. Longevity is super popular, but what longevity means to us, and we have a great team of providers who are doing it and can help share their success with other people.
All right. I'll be there. I believe I'm speaking. I got a notification for a speakers meeting, though. They got me. And I'm not gonna lie. I had to force my way into it.
Yeah. I'm not speaking that. I'm like, dude, what the hell? We're running the.
You weren't there. No, I was like, Leonard, bro, how are you not gonna have me speaking? What are you doing?
I know, that's what I was like, dude. Leonard, just give me a 15 or 20 minute spot, right?
Man, I had to angle, bro. It's like, we want you to do these other things. Like, no, man, I need to go. I feel like it's the first time I've ever really angled to speak at something. Normally, it's like I'll wait till I get invited. If I'm not invited, I'm good. I was like, no, I got to speak at that. I love that what you guys are doing, man. So I hustled my way into it, man. I worked my way in.
We're definitely lucky to have you, man, and your insights, dude. It's
gonna be cool.
Said, dude, this is what you do, and we want you to share that success with what you're doing with everybody, man. So it's definitely.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited. And there's and also they can find the link to call them on the NuBioAge website, right? I know it's got a separate website, but it's linked, right? If you go to that site.
If you reach out to support at NuBioAge, it's going to be wearecalm.life. That's going to be the website, okay. wearecalm.life. Perfect. And then you can register there.
I appreciate it, man. Well, let's get on out of here, man. I really want to thank you for making time to be here, man. It's been a long time coming, and it was a great episode, man. I learned a lot doing this too, and the future of Methylene Blue is exciting, and we're going to keep learning more and keep helping people, man. So thanks again, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, man. It was a pleasure as always. If you need anything, let me know. But I'll see you in a couple days.
I'll see you, man. Everyone, this has been another episode of the Optimization Academy. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Jones. I look forward to your feedback on this episode and can't wait to see you guys for the next one. We'll talk soon.